about the National Train Show Convention and the National Convention in Grapevine, Texas. And then Rick Hardy's going to talk to us about I can't say it right, high speed passenger service. And these should be very interesting talks today. Let's start it off though. John Wallace, why don't you tell us a little bit what's right around the corner?
Okay, well, next week is the 2023 National N-Scale Convention in Reno. And I would imagine that a few people on this broadcast are bringing modules. And on Wednesday morning, which is when you can start bringing your modules into the building, there will be a number of us wearing red lanyards and a badge that says NRail Volunteer that will be there to help guide you to the appropriate spot for your modules. So when you get there, look us up and we'll give you a hand. Hope to see a lot of you actually in Reno. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, since you brought that up, John, one question for you. Did you all get this thing worked about trailer parking? There were some questions the other day about where to park trailers.
I can answer that. To the east of the casino, there's a parking lot for parking trailers. So,
okay, there you go. Please don't try to take trailers into the parking garage. Doesn't work too well.
The parking garage is too small for your trailer. I'm actually the layout coordinator for the event, and I will be there with John directing traffic. So,
thanks, Lee. Thanks, John. All right. Terry Moore is our resident expert on T-TRAK, and he always has words of wisdom for us. So, Terry, what's on your mind today?
Okay. Welcome to the June edition of Talkin' T-TRAK. This month we're talking T-TRAK about the yellow bus. The yellow bus can be the source of many T-TRAK layout wiring problems. Other modular formats, such as N-TRAK, have modules that include ready installed individual power supply buses for each main track and others depending on format. Not only do the tracks simply plug together by the rail joiners, but the buswork simply plugs into the next module also. Due to the design of the bus connectors, all N-TRAK modules connect left end to right end only. Modular reverse positioning is not possible. Unfortunately, T-TRAK modules only have track feeder connections without power buses. The power buses must be recreated each time a T-TRAK layout is built. That, plus the blue, white, blue wiring standard, adds to much of the confusion experienced when wiring our large, and sometimes not so large, show layouts, especially if some module installations are unique. Due to the blue, white, blue wiring standard and the lack of fixed power bus connections, our T-TRAK world is full of options and opportunities. Our modules can be installed into a layout any which way, regardless of red, yellow track designations and their colored leads. We just need to know which red leads go to the red bus or the yellow bus, which yellow leads go to the yellow bus or the red bus. First, we must determine which is the red track and which is the yellow track. Our outside corners can be inside corners, and in the case of the new large corners, the 480, 447 millimeter radius corners are a perfect fit either way. And junctions can also be installed two ways, not to mention reversed straights. This diagram shows the normal track color coding and what happens when you start playing with positioning. One club I know of has a DCC power system that has the yellow bus output hardwired with reverse connections, creating a pseudo blue-white condition for any layout created. That way, all inner loops are available with any installed crossovers. Also, their common layouts are simply long loops with some junctions installed to create some inner loops. This sample layout has 3 inner loops. This build is a perfect use of an all layout inclusive yellow bus for all of the inner loops. Their layouts use DCC control exclusively. To have a yellow bus or not to have a yellow bus? That is the question. The answer is not always yes. The real question is, do we or why do we need a yellow bus? For this presentation, I will simulate the use of the Cato three-way extension cords. These bags of about 24 each of red and yellow marked extension cords are part of my train show equipment stash to supply most smaller layouts. Since T-TRAK modules are not supplied with installed buses, it would be really nice if modelers would bring their own three-way extension cords, 2 for each module. At 35 inches long, they are short for triple-length modules, but plenty long enough for singles and doubles. Although not all modules may be connected to the layout bus, the more the merrier. Now, this box below is a quote from the NRAIL T-TRAK standards and recommended practices. It basically outlines bus work, and it also mentions what I call large cable buses used on long and large layouts, primarily because of the small gauge wire used by the Cato wiring and possible large current draws of our larger layouts and reduced voltages to those layouts as a result. Note that the blue and white power pole connections are not attached to each other, allowing optional connections. This is a personal thing. The standard says to connect the plugs together. This way, there is no left or right end to the cable. The important thing is that the blue connectors connect together and the white connectors connect together, unless the cable connection is the reversal of the yellow bus supply to create the pseudo blue-white condition. At the bottom there, I created a little Y bus that I use quite a lot. Usually when I do layouts, I have my own branch, such as Kansas City, and I just simply supply the inner loop, the yellow bus, from the red bus, and there's no need for an exclusive yellow bus. When placing modules on tables as the layout is being built, please pull the module track feeders straight out the back of the module so that it can be clearly seen which module they supply. Some layouts may require the leads pulled out from the front, or the red lead out front and the yellow lead out back. Consider this photo as one table row of a 2 table wide installation, or only one side of a single table row without the second row of modules for clarity. And when you have single table wide rows, those 14-inch deep modules really make wiring awkward because there's a very small gap between the back-to-back modules. The same layout after the buses are created and the modules connected using the Cato three-way extension cords. This is the style of wiring I will show in the following diagrams. Here, you can see the leads going off the table to the right, then indicate the module leads from the other row of modules in a loop. The buses continue off the table at the top and bottom, representing the bus continuation. This is basic wiring using both red and yellow buses. And again, for large layouts, heavy cable bus sections may be used, but some Cato three-way extension cord wiring may still be included. And forgive the quality of my photos, I do not have a photo studio. This is the layout diagram I'll be using for this presentation. In real life, it would have many more straight modules, but their situation would all be the same, and the details in this diagram are already very small. The designated red or yellow tracks are indicated as per T-TRAK standards. Normally, I don't designate or wire corners or junctions as to red or yellow tracks, but with the creation of large junctions with the added straight track, I suggest the junction curves be considered yellow, the straight red, and corners, the outside large curve red, the inner smaller curve yellow. The added straight on large junctions would also be yellow. Now, this little diagram, again, it's colored according to what the tracks on those modules are labeled as. You'll notice the yard on the left is installed reversed with the front of the, with the front to the inside of the loop. So therefore the yellow tracks are to the outside. And this whole layout basically looks pretty normal and simple. What's so hard about that? Nothing, really. This shows track label color, red or yellow, just as the other all-inclusive diagram did. This shows the red and yellow tracks as constructed on the individual modules. For this example, we'll consider the yard loop, the one at the far left, requiring the yellow bus supply reversed to create a pseudo blue-white condition to allow the use of crossovers, allowing full access of all tracks to the layout. The shorter loop will operate the inner loop as DC, requiring that yellow bus to be fully isolated from the rest of the layout. Now, here, these tracks are colored, showing track power bus color, not the track label color. So across the top on that single row spine, you can see that the yellow track on those straights is now colored red, as are other yellow tracks in the junctions. This shows the color of the power bus the individual module tracks are supplied from. The single row of modules comprising the spine across the top are fed from the red bus only. There is no need for a yellow bus. Each of the two loops have their own independent yellow bus for their inner loops. The yard loop would require a long cable to supply the yard loop from the remote yellow power supply, or the yellow bus could be supplied from the red bus for the outer loop, with the connections to the red bus reversed for the pseudo blue-white condition. The very thing I built that Y I mentioned before. You notice the red power leads to the yard modules plug into the yellow bus because of that reversed section of modules, while the yellow leads plug into the red bus. The yellow leads for the yard loop would have its connection to the power supply reversed, as I mentioned, trying to get that blue-white condition. The other side of that initial layout, again, this shows the red and yellow tracks as connected, as constructed on the individual modules. For this example, we will consider the shorter loop to the left will operate as a standard blue-white, white-blue loop. The longer loop to the right will have both inner loops wired to create the pseudo blue-white condition to allow the use of any turnouts between the red outer and yellow inner loops. These four scenarios show why it's important to be fully aware of what the layout plan is to ensure correct wiring from the start. Sometimes, to avoid confusion, layout wiring is best left to one person, or separate branch managers can be assigned to wire specific branches. That was the procedure used back in Kansas City at the National Train Show in 2018. Now again, the tracks are labeled as to bus color. The single row of modules, again comprising the spine across the top, are fed from the red bus only. There's no need for a yellow bus. The short loop to the left does not need a yellow bus supply for blue-white, white-blue conditions. The longer loop to the right with 2 inner loops requires a yellow bus that will supply both inner loops. To create the pseudo blue-white condition, the yellow bus connections would be reversed at the source yet again. Now this diagram shows the use of those Cato 3-way extension cords. So this is how everything is wired. Loop number 1 on the left. Notice the confusion caused by the yard loop having the yard modules reversed. This requires absolute knowledge of where the track feeders are coming from. The second loop, the left short loop, has its own inside track yellow bus connected to the remote DC supply. The outside track red bus is connected to the layout red bus. Very straightforward. The third loop, the right short loop, is normal blue-white, white-blue, and all track feeders are connected to the red bus. The fourth loop, the double loop on the right, uses the red layout bus for all outside tracks and the layout yellow bus for all inside loops tracks as blue-white, blue-white, with the yellow bus reversed at the supply. So you'll notice the yellow bus supply is at the far top right corner, and there are no loops tapped off that bus until we get to the far left side where the yard is. Yard branch options. In the example used in this presentation, due to the long distance from the yellow bus power source, the need for the long yellow bus used solely for this branch could be removed by supplying the branch's yellow bus from the red bus. To establish the blue-white condition required by the branch, the connections from the red bus to the yellow bus would be reversed. So in closing, you can see from this that the yellow bus is not always necessary. And when it is, it can be wired in a unique fashion that makes the true knowledge of the wiring situation encountered in order to avoid making wiring mistakes. Thanks for watching.
This reminds me of that old saying, once I've made up my mind, I'm full of indecision. Terry, I'm glad you got that all written down because I'm totally confused now. But it's an interesting situation, and that's why we have guys like you at these conventions to help get everything fixed up right. We appreciate all you guys that do that work to get these things all set and going.
If I may, that is exactly why these presentations are presented in a PDF format under Talkin T-TRAK on the website, allowing people to actually sit back and study the photos and what I'm writing so that they can take time to dissect it and fully understand the situation. Thanks, everybody.
And we appreciate your doing that. It really is helpful. Thank you very much, Terry. Okay, next is the about 2 months from now, in end of August, is the National NMRA National Convention in Grapevine, Texas, which is a city halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth. And there's also the National Trade Show going on at the same time. And we've got some gentlemen that are going to tell us all about it. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thanks for letting us talk today. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about the Fremo N operations layout that will be at the convention. We're not talking about the layouts at the train show. This is specifically the layout at the convention. And I'm not here to try to get you to come to the convention, but if you are coming to the convention, we are highly encouraging you guys to come to the operations roadshow layout that is combined with Fremo N and the NMRA, and we're putting together a really nice layout. We do have a time slot reserved right now for NRAIL members that are coming to the convention. If you could get your name to either Bruce or myself before the convention starts, we can get you an early sign up for Wednesday at 2:00. This isn't open to anybody. It's only directly to the NRAIL members. And I've worked hard to get that set up for us to have that opportunity. For the rest of the presentation, Gordy Robinson, who's the president of the NMRA, is going to facilitate the discussion between me and John Young, who is part of Operations Roadshow. And we put a lot of time in the last year in getting this ready to go. So I'll turn the time over to Gordy.
Thanks, Lee. And as we go through the chat today, if you've got questions, just stick them in the meeting chat as we go along, and we'll either answer them in the chat itself later on, or if we've got time at the end, we'll answer them. So first, I'd like to introduce you all to a gentleman called John Young, who's recently got the bug for N scale, and particularly Fremo N, but has for the last very many years been a key player in the Ops Roadshow team that used to bring a sectional HO layout to conventions up until Kansas City in 2018. And I'd just like to ask John to first off give us some of the history and really introduce what is the Ops Roadshow to everybody.
Thank you, Gordy. The Operations Roadshow is designed to give people a chance to learn how to operate on a model railroad using timetable and train order protocols. We also use a car card system for routing the individual cars to industries. That latter part won't be present with the N scale version this year. Part of this layout is going to have a JMRI base switch list system, and the rest of it is going to use tab on car to route the cars. Basically, the Operations Roadshow is a hands-on experience to give you a chance to either participate in an operating session if you're already a skilled operator, or to come and be paired up with somebody who understands operations, and you and another individual will go around as a team and operate your train under these rules. We present this whole thing as about a 15 or 20 minute clinic at the beginning. You'll then be assigned a job. We'll start the clocks and fire up the layout and have an op session. The fun part of this is you can go to a national convention, sit in a clinic room and listen to somebody talk, but it doesn't really give you the opportunity to interact with anybody. The Operations Roadshow gives you a very hands-on experience with a good opportunity to meet with other people in the hobby and exchange your experiences with them, and also interact with them in a fun setting. Years past, this has been an HO endeavor. We had a dedicated layout we did this with. We had drug it to 8 national train show or national conventions to do this. Last year, the Fremo N guys put their hands up to organize something like this, and the ORS guys stepped up to give them a hand with it. We're going to do the same thing this year in Grapevine. This layout is going to be a significant size, about 320 foot on the main line. So with the way it's set up and the way we can have jobs, we're thinking we're going to have 16 people and 8 crews on each of these operating sessions. I think that pretty much covers the whole thing. That's our history and what we're going to try to do.
Thanks, John. So I'm going to fire a question at Lee now. So Lee, can you tell us a little bit about where this all started for pulling together the layout for Dallas?
This all started probably 3 or 4 months, or probably 2 or 3 months before the last national convention, when we started planning for the convention in 2022, and it really started in earnest in September. I was asked by Jeremy Jansen, who was the layout coordinator in 2022, to come and help contact Fremo N people as a large community and coordinate getting a layout and build the excitement to attend and make this a large Fremo N event and a large NRAIL event and a large N-TRAK or not NMRA event that would help a lot of people learn and give us an opportunity to to facilitate friendships and learning opportunities. So we've spent a lot of time since September online using, we started out on Facebook Messenger, messaging a lot. We've done a lot of emails. And lately we've switched over to Discord, and we do a lot of our communications and planning there. We've got a bunch of guys still building modules. Gordy's got a couple that he's building that he's going to bring to play. So we've got modules coming from all over the United States and from the UK. So it should be fun.
And I'm gonna go back to John. Thanks, Lee. So John, but I appreciate that some of the folks on this call may not be too familiar with timetable and train order operations. It may not be something that they use, particularly if they're doing a T-TRAK layout. So could you just briefly explain to everybody what is a timetable and train orders for those that are not familiar?
Timetable and train order is a rather archaic way of managing the trains on the prototype, or in our case, the model railroad. There is a published timetable that will show some scheduled trains in it. And then on top of those trains, we will add extras that run with clearance forms and train orders that give them the instructions of how they're going to get over the railroad. All this will be explained to you and continually explained to you as we go along. This was the first system used when the railroads first got telegraph systems where they could communicate station to station. We do the same thing. We used to use on the HO version telephones to communicate between the dispatcher and the crews. Now we actually use cell phones to text back and forth. So Gordy's sharing some of the forms we use here, the ones we used last year. Basically, what we're looking at right there is a clearance form, and underneath it is part of the train order. Clearance form will tell you how many train orders you should have. The train order will describe to you what you're going to do. For the most part, what they'll say is you're going to run from one spot to another. Additionally, it might tell you you're going to meet another train someplace. Easy to execute on. The one difference besides size between the Fremo system and the HO, our HO setup had backdrops on them. So as you're operating on a layout, you were only able to see whatever town or area you were on. With the Fremo N, of course, you're going to be able to see across the whole room and see what else, everything is happening. That takes a little bit away from it, but I don't think significantly. The room's big, the layout's bigger. So there's going to be a lot of things. What Lee's showing right there are some of the operating rules. We don't definitely demand that you learn these, but reading through them, you're going to get a feel for what we're trying to do. So, Gordy, does that answer your question?
Well, super. So I think in your first answer to my first question, you talked about how big the layout actually is, and it's easy to just quickly say, oh, it's see Lee scrambling now. You can quickly say, oh, it's 320 feet, and then try to visualize that is a bit difficult. So I wonder whether you, Lee, could just show everyone the track, the module plan or the track plan, and talk through the layout. I feel like I'm virtually getting something thrown at me for asking that, but
no, here, I think I shared the wrong way. Let me share the screen this time. So here is the layout that we are going to assemble in Dallas. It's approximately 70 feet in this dimension by about 55 feet in this dimension. We start on, as an operations, as a train crew, you'll either start in this yard here or this yard here, and we might have a few starting in this yard here. But you start off and you get your train orders from the dispatcher. You make your way around. There might be some switching opportunities for some people at some of these industries as you go. We do have numerous passing sidings throughout the layout to do the meets. This loop right here is coming from Utah. This yard right here is being built in Texas. These couple curves are coming from Utah and from Portland area. This industry area here is coming from St. Louis. There's a bunch of other modules in here. This one's coming from Portland, Oregon. This one's coming from Salt Lake City, Utah. Let's see if we can find one. We've got this one right here, which is one of Gordy's modules that he's bringing to us. This stretch of modules is mostly coming from Oklahoma City area, or Tulsa area, I think. This one's coming from Texas. This yard right here is currently being built by Speed, who it lives in Texas. And then we've got a passenger station that is going to be available to use as part of the operations. It's also under construction right now in Texas. This industrial area is coming from a gentleman also in Texas. And if you guys have been following along on my other presentation regarding Farragut Loop, this is part of Farragut Loop right there. And then there's another portion of Farragut Loop right here. This group of modules right here is going to be the JMRI switching modules. And that'll be a separate, but also combined part of the operating session. And the last staging yard is being built by John Young, who's here with us today. And then we've got a final loop right here. And this loop is being constructed. It's actually a coal mine. And so it's 3 loops around the loop before you exit again. And it's being built in Georgia right now. Anything else, Gordy?
No, that's fantastic. I think we worked it out last time we did a clinic that it's either just over or just under 10 scale miles.
I've added another 3 feet. It's over 10 miles long.
Okay.
And if you count the loops in there, we're closer to 11, almost 12 miles.
Lee, could you return to that slide that showed K-Town? The last one you had up. This, you might be surprised to find out, is a train order signal. And it is indicating on the green that there's no order to be picked up. But on the right of it, you can just barely see the red signal indicating the train coming from that direction is going to pick up the train orders that are hanging there on it. We're going to have these all around the layout. They just clamp onto the module sides. These are controlled on the auxiliary bus from our computer running JMRI. 5 of these stations will be around the layout, and they do most of the communication between the dispatcher and the train crews themselves. Thank you, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Super guys. So John, if you could, I guess what we've not really covered in too much detail is what I'm going to combine a few questions just for time. So you know, if you could just run through what will happen from beginning to end of an ops session at the Ops Roadshow, because like you said, it's run like a clinic, so it's slightly different from people who may have operated somewhere else. And then let's have a bit of reassurance of people that may never have operated before. And then let's just close out with telling people how they'll be able to sign up for clinics or for ops sessions outside of the NTRAK or NRail 1, and we'll talk about the NRail 1 again before we close out.
Okay, we start out by having about a 20-minute clinic right there at the layout. We'll distribute some of the paperwork you're going to use during the session. That's be for you to keep. Our chief dispatcher will explain how the session is going to run. It's basically the operator, who is my wife, will pair people up, and also with a docent. And then we'll assign different trains to them. Some of the trains will be just straight throughs. Some are passenger trains. We have some local switching jobs on the layout. We have that one main yard in the middle that's going to take crew, and the JMRI switching area is going to take a separate crew. If that's something that interests you, you can volunteer for those in the session. Otherwise, we'll just distribute them depending on the comfort level of the people. You're never on your own exactly. You'll always have somebody with you that understands what's going on, can explain what needs to happen. We let you have the chance to figure things out on yourself, since there's a lot of looking at paperwork and trying to understand what the next move should be. Timetable and train order does not have somebody instantly dictating to you where your train should be and what it should be doing. It's in a written format. There's things to interpret. You have to take the time to judge whether you can make it to the next passing sighting to meet some train coming at you. That's what a lot of the fun is involved in it. To me, the other part is the social part. You get to interact with a lot of different people that you might not get a chance to. So I think that answers that question for you. As far as signing up for a session, as Lee said, for the end guys, we do have one dedicated session for them on Wednesday afternoon. If you want to get a hold of Lee, he can get you hooked up on that. There'll be 16 people in that one. For the rest of the sessions that start at 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, and then there'll be 11 total sessions. On Sunday evening, my wife will be at the layout and she will be signing people up for the rest of the week. You'll leave your name and cell phone number with us, and we will give you a card with her cell phone to get a hold of us in case something happens and you can't make the sessions you signed up for. You'd like to be there 15 minutes before the sessions. The sessions themselves go off at 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 7 o'clock every day, Monday through Thursday. And that's the way we do. We try to make this as unintimidating as possible. The 3 core guys who started this all learned how to play timetable and train order operations layout management from a guy who was a professional railroader and very strict about the rules. And we tried not to have that kind of attitude about the whole thing. We know we're doing it for fun. We know nobody's going to die, so we just try to have a good time with doing it.
Fantastic. So I think we've just got, well, I'm going to steal time for one more question for Lee. So Lee, this is obviously a little bit different from, well, it's a little bit smaller than Evanston, but it's a little bit different from a normal Fremo N setup. There's a lot more involved in it. If you maybe just cover off again how it's been working with, let's close this off by talking about how it's been working with the NMRA, the Fremo N community, and also the Ops Roadshow guys, and how that's all worked together.
Okay. For me, I've just done Evanston before. I planned one large show as a whole. I've also planned a couple NMRA national train show layouts for Fremo N. This is a little more difficult because we're not just dealing with the Fremo N guys, we're dealing with coordinating the space and the times and everything through the NMRA and the actual convention staff. And then we have to coordinate all of our operations and make sure that the railroad is designed in such a way that will facilitate the Ops Roadshow mantra or scheme or whatever their your format that works, the format of the Ops Roadshow, to provide a similar experience that has been provided by their HO layout that they had in the past. We haven't always seen eye to eye as we've had these discussions. It hasn't been 100% perfect, but 90% of the time we work together great. And that other 10% of the time we realize our differences and we work through it because we do have a common goal, and that is to provide the best experience we can for those attending the national convention. So overall, it's been really well, and we look forward to continuing this relationship with the NMRA and Operations Roadshow in the future.
Agreed here. We have only high things to say about interacting with the Fremo N guys. St. Louis was just a dream, and this one looks like it's just going to be the same thing all over again. There have been a little discussions back and forth about different things, but like Lee says, we have a common goal, so we'll work through whatever issues there are. So,
thanks, guys. Lee, I'll yield it back over to you.
All right, thanks, John and Gordy, and thanks for allowing us to come and turn this time back over to Razor. Thanks, Razor.
All right. One other thing I guess we ought to just mention on the side is that beside all the operations with the Fremo N, There also at that convention a lot of private layouts in the greater DFW area that Speed Muller is coordinating, signing up. If you're interested in operating, should they contact you, Speed?
All the layouts, tours and stuff are all on the website. If you go to, is it Texas Express 2023?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think that's the right address. All the operations layouts and layout tours and all the different things you can do, all the clinics will all be available or are available on there. So
looking forward. It's going to be a great convention. Let's talk about next month in July. Our meeting is on the 15th, and we're going to start something new. As you can see, I'm no spring chicken, so we are asking among our congregation of members and attendees if anyone wants an opportunity to guest host on this ZoomTRAK thing. We're going to start setting that up, and we will have our first guest host next month. And I make it easy for him because I'm not very good at this, and he'll have no problem at all, doing a better job than I do. But it's a one-shot deal for right now. And if you are interested in being a guest host of a future ZoomTRAK meeting, then please contact Bruce at the our NRail, what is it called? Our
ZoomTRAK at nrail.org.
Yeah, that thing. And we'll see what we can do. Bruce, you have anything else for us today?
Speed, I noticed that you've unmuted. So do you have anything to say about the layout tours for the Texas Express?
Just that the website is 2023texasexpress.com. When you register for the convention, you will get 2 emails, and one of them will contain the instructions on how to register for the operating sessions. And if you want a preview, I posted a link in the chat there for operating-sessions.com's special link for it. And then we are really looking forward to seeing you guys here. I do know there are some N-scale activity at the train show as well. So maybe a suggestion is that we find who's organizing that, and then they can come here and tell us about it as well.
well, you're looking at Razor right there.
And I was answering the poll, so I wasn't listening to you.
Razor's our man for organizing the N-scale layout, I believe. Him and Bruce.
Yes.
At the train show.
Yes, and the N-scale layout is going to be really nice. We've got a block of space for T-TRAK. We don't have it all full yet. There are slots open. So if you're interested in T-TRAK, you can contact us, and we will try to. I think there'll be no problem getting your modules included. There will be 3 N-TRAK loops, all of them linked together, and there's also an N-TRAK spine section where one of the fellows from California is bringing some stuff, including one of the original Belmont Shores 8-foot modules, and it will be in the layout. This layout is designed where there is a helix between the one end of the 3 N-TRAK loops that ties it down to T-TRAK, and at the other end of the N-TRAK loops is that spine section I was telling you about from California, and that will connect directly to a large helix that takes everything up to the Fremo N level, and there will be a whole nother group of Fremo N modules, different from the ones over at the convention site where the Operation Roadshow is happening. There's another group of Fremo N modules that will be linked to this at the National Train Show, and you have an option to run it through any or all of those. And there are jumps between each one where you can double back if you don't want to proceed on to other areas, or you can go around it all. There will probably be a limit on train length if you travel some of these areas, particularly if you get into the Fremo N, because there's some limits on how long train can be, I believe. But we'll get to that, and we'll have a lot more information for you on that next month, but it is coming along. We are pretty well full as far as NTRAK modules go, but I think there is plenty of room for FreeMO-N. And if you're interested in that, I'll find the information and we'll get this out to everyone. I'll get Bruce. We'll keep watch for it. We'll probably put it on our
Razor,
website.
I was gonna say, we can still take some NTRAK modules if somebody wants to bring them.
Okay.
But the big thing is to make sure that you know, T-TRAK is easy to transport, and we've got room on T-TRAK as well. And I think that probably even if you have a FreeMO-N module, you want to bring there'd be room for that as well.
Yeah, there's
still
plenty
lots-
of room for FreeMO-N.
This is going to be the first time that you can actually run from all the way tabletop a T-TRAK all the way up to the 50-inch FreeMO-N. However, that doesn't mean that you have to. That's an option. You can do that if you want to, or you can just stay in your particular loop. Actually, it's 3 formats because I think that the NTRAK section has 2 loops, and I'm not sure FreeMO-N has any loops, but so
FreeMO-N has 2 or 3 reverse loops.
okay.
Yeah.
So
And there are 3
Reverse
NTRAK
loops, but
Bruce.
not rectangular. So,
no, we
uh,
don't believe in loops like that.
It's going to be interesting to see, and should be a lot of fun to operate and just see what the other formats are like. So that'll be a good opportunity to do that. And if you have interest or you have any questions, just send email to layout@nrail.org.
And that will be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Set up on Thursday, operations on Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the end of the convention. All right, gentlemen and ladies, if we have any, thank you all for attending this week. We apologize for that one of our presenters was delayed, not able to catch it, but we'll bring him back and get him here. And look forward to seeing you all next month on the 15th of July. Be sure to fill out your little questionnaire. Give us some feedback on how we're doing, and have a great week. And week after next, I think a week from this weekend is Father's Day, so we all get to play trains with no hassle. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye now.